All right, welcome to another episode of our Beyond the Numbers interview series, where we interview top value leaders about what advice they have for themselves if they could go back and why they love accounting. Today, we have the honor and privilege of speaking with Dr. Kelly Damron. Kelly is the accounting chair and associate professor of accounting at Grand Canyon University. So Kelly, welcome. I'm excited that you agreed to speak with us today. Are you ready to get started?
I'm ready to get started. This is an exciting topic.
Okay. All right. So if you could go back to when you were a staff or senior accountant, what advice would you give yourself?
I'm going to preface that by saying the profession has changed. So some of the things that I would do is, for one, back then it seemed like people were out for themselves and not so much out for the team. And so I probably would have documented a lot of my interactions with my colleagues, especially my peers. There were a couple episodes where I didn't have like a documentation. I didn't write things down, which had happened between myself and another peer. And then they would go tell somebody something that didn't happen at all, and it wasn't true. And unfortunately, those lies hurt my relationships with some of the people in the firm. Okay. So I do think if I could go back, I would tell myself to document and then maybe go speak to my mentor about some of the things that had been happening, so that way they could have stuck up for me and told my side of the story instead of it all being kind of one-sided. So I do think that part of the profession has changed, but I definitely would be more of an advocate for myself than I was back then.
So just being an advocate for yourself. And I know I talk to people that are just starting out in their profession that like they don't have the courage to be their own advocate. Sometimes they're scared to speak to their manager, or their manager is busy and they don't feel, well, plus sometimes accountants are not the most personable. You know, we're more introverts than extroverts, right? So you still would say, have the courage, go talk to somebody, go talk to your manager.
Absolutely. The mentor that was assigned to me, she and I just didn't click. You know, I probably should have found an informal mentor. I didn't really feel like she had my back. If, you know, that makes sense. I think we all have those people that maybe are supposed to be there supporting us, or supposed to be listening to us and trusting us and encouraging us. And my mentor was not like that at all.
Okay.
So what I would recommend is find that informal mentor. If you're not connecting, because all of the firms today, I think, do like a formal networking process, at least the public accounting firms. I don't know what it's like in industry, but the public accounting firms have a formal mentor for those new hires. And if you're just not connecting with that formal mentor, then find an informal mentor. There's probably somebody on a project that you kind of connect better with, you know, share some of your concerns, your thoughts, your frustrations, whatever it may be, so that they can help you figure out how to handle a situation, right, that may not be working out great, or give you some advice on kind of some of your next steps should be if you're really looking at career progression and things of that nature. Because your formal mentor kind of has a plan for you, but your informal mentor can provide some of that informal advice, how to navigate and get ahead.
Mentor could just be somebody that's like 1 year ahead of you. They don't have to be a manager or supervisor or anybody, just somebody that has more experience than you.
Somebody that you're just comfortable with, that could be a sounding board for sure.
All right, so moving on, why do you love accounting, or what value has your accounting degree played in your career?
So I love accounting, which I can tell you back in the early days of my career, I probably would not have said. Like many students, when I was taking intermediate 1 and intermediate 2, I'm going, what am I doing? Why am I in these classes? This stuff is horrible, right? I actually thought about changing my degree to finance, and then realized I was too far along in my program to change. And so I was like, well, I'm just going to stick it out. And then I found tax. I took a tax class in college, and I loved it. And I was like, okay, this I can do. And so I started my career in taxation, and I did love taxation as a career. As I got further along, I started kind of getting bored with the compliance and really wanted to be more of that consultant or advisor to a client. But I do think accounting is just, again, it's the language of business. So we should love it or appreciate it, at least. It is, if you can understand accounting, you can understand the relationships between the accounts and what that information is telling us about how well the business is performing. And then with that, we can make business decisions, right? So we can look at an unprofitable client and say, well, should we get rid of them? Yeah, probably, right? Or if we look at our profitable clients, well, why are they so profitable and how do we do more of that, right? So the financial statements give us all of that information. And I didn't really appreciate that in my early career the way that I appreciate it today. So I just think accounting provides also, from a career perspective, so many opportunities, right? You can be a tax accountant, an auditor, a forensic accountant, a managerial accountant. You can be a financial analyst. You can be a treasurer, a controller. There's so many things you can do with that accounting career work in nonprofit, government accounting. I just think that accountant title and having that accounting expertise just gives you so much variety in the work, and then gives you so many career options. It's kind of one of those, we always have a job. Accountants always have a job.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. All right. So how would you say the students of 14 years ago, 10 years ago have changed from the students of now?
They are the IT generation. They have very short attention spans, and they do want you to tell them like the next step. So that has changed from kind of that earlier generation I was teaching. But also when I was teaching at night, I was teaching those graduate students who were already adult learners and had already had a career. So then I, moved into undergraduate, but I have seen a little bit more of that. They're just more used to that kind of structure, I think, in their K through 12 education, and then they kind of hope for that in their collegiate education. So I try to teach them those critical thinking, problem solving skills. Like I give them enough tools to be successful, but they have to learn how to use those tools on their own.
Okay. So maybe a hiring manager or a manager of a new accounting graduate might have to spend more time with their new hire today than somebody that they did like 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think that it's because they lack the intelligence. I think it's just because everything has been provided for them, right? They can look it up on Google, and now we have AI. So everything's at their fingertips, right? So they don't really have to know how to do things.
Okay.
They can look it up and kind of maybe figure it out from there. But yeah, a little bit more structure maybe is the right word for some of those new hires coming in to make sure that they understand that job expectations and some of that day-to-day stuff.
Anything else that you would like to tell, like somebody of that staff and senior accountant that would help them progress in their career, get promoted, or just any other advice you might have?
Yeah, some advice I have for those new hires, kind of touch on it a little bit, find that informal mentor and kind of use that person to guide you, to help answer kind of those silly questions that you may be afraid to ask your formal mentor. Also, make sure you're an advocate for yourself. Be a good team player. That is something that I didn't really experience in public accounting, at least not at my first firm, but at my second firm I did. Just be a good team player, and that just makes the workplace better. Make sure you find where you fit. Fit is really important. Culture is really important. You spend so much time working. You need to make sure you're at an organization where you like the people and you like the work, because if you love the work and you don't like the people, you're going to leave pretty quickly. And also from a public accounting perspective, the profession tends to be focused on the negative, like, there's a list of all the things you did wrong. Try not to let that hurt your self-confidence. It's all a learning tool, and treat it as a learning tool so that it doesn't burn you out. And then both in industry and public accounting, make sure you communicate your workload so that your managers can help you and you don't get burned out.
Right. Yes, those are all really good points, but I'm going to focus on the list of all the negative things that you've done, because I've experienced lists like that, right? We all have. And you're going to do more wrong than right when you're first starting out your career, and you're not going to be perfect. People are used to perfection these days. You're not going to be perfect, and you're just going to have to take that criticism. And it's hopefully constructive. Hopefully they don't yell at people anymore, or
I don't think they do.
Yeah. All right, Kelly. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. Thank you everybody for watching, and stay tuned for another episode.
Thank you.